In 30 BC, something happened that history still cannot fully explain. A kingdom vanished, not slowly, not through centuries of decline, but in a way that feels sudden, incomplete, almost erased. That kingdom was Lydia, located in what is now Western Turkey, and Lydia was not just another ancient civilization. It was one of the earliest societies in history to standardize gold currency, meaning something very important. This was not symbolic wealth. This was real economic power, measurable, stored, controlled. And that changes everything, because civilizations like this do not simply lose wealth. They track it, record it, protect it. So when Lydia disappears, the question becomes even more disturbing. Where did everything go? At the center of Lydia was its capital city. Sardis, a major hub of trade between east and west, a place where gold, goods, and power moved constantly. And at the center of Sardis was King Croesus, known in later Anatolian tradition as Karun, a ruler so wealthy. His name still survives as a symbol of extreme richness. But Croesus is remembered for something else, not just wealth, but warning. Before his downfall, Croesus consulted an oracle, a prophecy that would define everything. If you cross a river, a great empire will fall. But the prophecy had a fatal flaw. It never said which empire, his enemies, or his own. And that ambiguity became the turning point of history, because Croesus believed he understood it. But history suggests he may have misunderstood it completely. Croesus crossed the river, and war began almost immediately. But here is the first contradiction. He did not fall because he lacked resources. He fell despite having one of the richest treasuries in the ancient world, which leads to a question historians still struggle with. How does a kingdom with that level of wealth collapse so completely? And where was that wealth during its collapse? After the conquest by Cyrus the Great of Persia, Lydia disappears as an independent kingdom, but something else disappears at the same time. Its economic identity. And this is where the mystery becomes deeper. Because advanced civilizations do not vanish cleanly. They leave traces, archives, records, administrative systems, but Lydia does not leave a complete record of its total wealth. Only fragments, broken references in later texts, scattered archaeological evidence, and missing continuity in financial history. So, now the question splits. Was the treasure taken, or was it never fully recorded? One theory suggests the simplest answer, that the Persian Empire looted everything after conquest. But this creates a problem, because if an entire kingdom's gold entered a massive empire, there should be visible economic consequences. Inflation, changes, wealth redistribution, administrative documentation, but there is no complete historical signature of Croesus' full fortune appearing in any empire, which creates a gap that history cannot easily explain. And historians know something important about gaps. Gaps do not stay empty. They become theories. Centuries later, archaeologists began excavating Sardis, and at first, everything seemed to confirm expectations. Gold artifacts, royal architecture, buried wealth. But then something changed, not in what they found, but in what happened during excavation. Reports began to surface. Equipment failures without explanation, accidents on site, sudden illnesses among workers, and something even more unusual. Pattern of people leaving early, without giving clear reasons, not officially documented as fear, but repeatedly observed as avoidance. Local communities had an explanation, one that existed long before modern archaeology. They said, the treasure of Karun should not be disturbed. From a scientific perspective, this is folklore, but folklore often appears where data becomes incomplete, where evidence stops. Interpretation begins, and here is where the mystery deepens again. Even today, Sardis is not fully excavated, large. Underground sections remain untouched. Modern surveys have identified complex subterranean layers, chambers, structures, possibly sealed areas, but they are not fully explored, not confirmed, not understood, which leads to another question. What exactly is still buried beneath Sardis? At this point, the mystery splits into multiple possibilities. 1. The treasure was fully looted during ancient invasions. but historical documentation was lost or fragmented beyond recovery. 2. The wealth was intentionally divided and hidden across multiple regions to prevent any single empire from controlling it. Again, 3. Something still exists, not as legend, but as physical. Material still underground, still unverified, still undiscovered. And here is the key problem. Every major empire that controlled this region, Persians, Greeks, Romans, all left detailed records of conquest, all documented taxation systems and governance. But none preserved a complete accounting of Lydia's total wealth. Not a single empire left a full financial record of Croesus' fortune, which creates something unusual, a structural absence in history itself, not just missing information, but missing continuity. So we return again to the central question. If the wealth of Croesus truly existed at that scale, how does it disappear completely from historical record? And if it did not disappear, then why is it absent from documentation? Who controlled what was recorded and what was allowed to be preserved? Because history is not only what survives time, it is what survives systems of documentation, and those systems are fragile. They can break, they can be lost, they can be destroyed, or they can be shaped over time. And this leads to a deeper question beyond archaeology, a question about memory itself, because if a civilization's greatest wealth can vanish from record, then what else in human history might be incomplete? What truths are missing simply because no evidence survived? And there is one final question that remains unanswered. If someone today uncovered everything, the complete treasure of King Croesus, fully intact, what would actually happen? Would it rewrite history completely? Or would history resist being rewritten? Because some mysteries are not solved, they are only expanded, and this is one of them.